When someone dislikes you for no clear reason, your first instinct is to explain yourself. But what if the need to explain is exactly what gives them power, and silence is what exposes the truth you haven't seen yet? Have you ever felt it? That moment when someone looks at you with quiet hostility, even though you've given them no reason, no argument, no betrayal, no mistake, just a cold distance that appears out of nowhere. Most people panic in that moment. They search their memory, replay their words, and start tearing themselves apart, wondering what they did wrong. But what if that question itself is the trap? What if the discomfort you feel isn't pointing to a flaw in you, but to a conflict inside them? Welcome to Stoic Silence Wisdom. Here is the truth most people never tell you. Not all dislike is earned, and not all hatred is rational. Sometimes your presence alone unsettles others, because it reflects something they avoid facing in themselves. And once you see this clearly, you can never unsee it. In this video, we won't teach you how to please, explain, or defend yourself. We'll uncover the hidden psychological forces behind unexplained hostility and why your calm response is the ultimate power. Stay with me until the end, because the final realization may completely change how you see people forever. If this kind of quiet clarity speaks to you, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue creating reflections that sharpen the mind and steady the soul. And once that question has taken hold, the mind naturally wants an answer, something solid to stand on instead of doubt. This is where the Stoic perspective quietly changes everything. Stoicism begins by drawing a clear line between what belongs to you and what never will. You do not own other people's perceptions. You cannot command their emotions, rewrite their judgments, or control the stories they tell themselves about you. Trying to do so only hands your peace over to forces you were never meant to manage. What is yours is far simpler and far more demanding: your character, your conduct, and your response in the moment. The Stoics understood that suffering often starts when we mistake external opinions for internal verdicts. We absorb reactions as if they were facts, and in doing so, we abandon our center. A disciplined mind learns to pause. Instead of asking, "Why don't they approve of me?" it asks, "Why am I giving their approval this much authority?" That shift doesn't harden you. It steadies you. And from that steadiness, clarity begins to emerge. Once you stop chasing approval and regain your center, a deeper question naturally follows. If this isn't about you, then where does this hostility really come from? Most resentment grows from a few hidden roots, and they often operate quietly, beneath the surface of everyday interactions. The first is envy shaped by insecurity. When your growth exposes someone else's stagnation, discomfort arises. Your discipline, confidence, or calm becomes an unspoken reminder of what they avoid confronting in themselves. Instead of reflection, envy looks for relief, and it often finds it in silent resistance or subtle hostility. Another root lies in misunderstanding paired with emotional blindness. People hear through the filter of their wounds. A neutral remark becomes an insult. Distance is mistaken for arrogance. When empathy is absent, assumptions fill the gap. Over time, these false interpretations harden into conviction, and conviction fuels resentment. In these moments, clarity matters, but only up to the point where explanation remains dignified. Beyond that, detachment is wisdom. Competition and comparison form a third source. In environments where recognition feels scarce, people measure themselves constantly. Your presence may feel threatening simply because it highlights what they believe they lack. When someone feels unseen or undervalued, resentment seeks an outlet, and it often attaches itself to the person who seems composed or quietly respected. This is not rivalry you chose, but rivalry imposed from within another mind. Finally, there is the weight of social norms and gossip. Choosing a different path unsettles those who rely on conformity for security. When you don't play the expected role, narratives form in your absence. Rumors replace reality because they require less courage than truth. Yet noise fades. Integrity remains. Understanding these roots doesn't harden you. It frees you from carrying explanations that were never yours to hold. And when you see these patterns clearly, something quiet but profound begins to settle within you. This is the moment the Stoics wanted you to reach. The realization that most hostility is not a verdict on your character, but a signal of someone else's inner disorder. People lash out not because you are wrong, but because your steadiness confronts what they have not mastered in themselves. Once you understand this, the urge to react starts to dissolve. You no longer feel compelled to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer mistake silence for weakness or boundaries for cruelty. Calm restraint becomes a conscious choice, not a defensive reflex. This is not emotional withdrawal, it is emotional precision. The Stoic path does not harden the heart, it strengthens the spine. It teaches you to remain composed without becoming distant, firm without becoming bitter. Inner peace is not achieved by correcting others, but by refusing to surrender your center to forces that cannot give you clarity in return. When you step back and see the full picture, a quiet truth emerges. Much of the tension you face in life is not something to be solved, corrected, or conquered. It is something to be understood and then released. The Stoics never promised a world without conflict. They offered something far more realistic, a way to remain intact within it. The deeper lesson here is simple but demanding. You are not required to absorb every emotion directed at you. You are not obligated to respond to every misunderstanding, nor to earn peace by exhausting yourself in explanation. Real strength is not loud. It is the ability to remain centered when others are unsettled, to stay principled when others are reactive, and to choose composure over validation. Applied to modern life, this means practicing intentional distance. Pause before reacting. Ask yourself whether the situation truly requires your energy or whether it is merely testing your self-control. Focus on what you can shape, your actions, your values, your integrity, and let the rest pass without resistance. Over time, this discipline builds a reputation that speaks louder than any defense ever could. Before we end, here's a simple question for you. When faced with unexplained negativity, do you usually react immediately, or do you pause and reflect first? Share your thoughts in the comments so others can learn from your perspective. And if this reflection resonated with you, consider subscribing to Stoic Silence Wisdom. Your support helps us continue creating calm, thoughtful content for the journey ahead.